Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha. I pay my respects to Honorable Murali Madhavan sir, the President of Control Shala, and all the torchbearers of the Shala, and respected Lisha Madam, Aryambika Madam, Manisha, and other. So I pay my respects to all these great souls who have kindly given me this opportunity to share my views, especially on a more relevant and very thought-provoking uh, topic. So this shows that Murali Madhavan sir is quite jovial and he's very active, that he chooses topics and persons. So I deem it my really great luck to that I am chosen for this topic. And recently I have published my Sutra translation of Mìmëmsë. Maybe that has inspired sir to choose me for this topic. But I tell you, sir, I am totally beholden to you. And I try to do justice to the topic because I am, as many people, I am also afraid of the Mìmëmsë Darshana because it is a big ocean compared to the other philosophical systems. We all know that on one side, all the five systems, on the other side, only Mìmëmsë Sutra, because all the other Mìmëmsë Sutra put together, we may be having 2,700, but only the Mìmëmsë Sutra, 2,715 Sutra. So I know my limitations and the magnanimity of the Shastra, but still within the given time, we will try to ponder over the major theories of the system so that some inspiration we may get from these studies. And my dear friends, be prepared for a different journey into the Mìmëmsë Shastra, because as our Honorable President has already spoken of the magnanimity of this Shastra, we all know that Mìmëmsë is basically connected with the Veda and Vedic rituals. So many people wonder what role it has got to play in the field of linguistics. But this is really a very thought-provoking one, because when the first Mìmëmsë Sutra says Adhato Dharma Jijnasa, and dharma has been signified as Chodana Lakshanortho Dharmaha, so automatically a question arises that you say that the dharma is the summum bonum of the entire Veda, but how that dharma can be understood and ascertained? So what is the pramana in dharma? That is the problem. Then the dharma is explained in the next sutra, Chodana Lakshanortho Dharmaha, and Chodanam Apurvam Bhavanam va Vyakhyasamaha. So the commentators say that Chodana is basically Apurva itself, or you can say the Yajatishu Chodana Prayujyate. So the Kriya is also Chodanam, the Pravartanam Chodanam Ahu. So we have different understandings of the word Chodana. But the next few sutras of Jaimini Maharshi, they talk about the pramana in dharma, and they say that this Veda is a Swataf pramana because Veda is Apaurusheya. So naturally, how can you say that a word and its sense and the relation, syntactic relation between the word and sense, all should be there in the Veda also, as we find in the human composition. So naturally, in our human composition, we first contemplate on something, then we utter the words, and the words carry the meaning. And as Gadadhar Bhattacharya says, that Shabda Bodhecha Eka Padarthe Apara Padarthasya Samsargaha Samsarga Maryadaya Bhasate. And that particular Samsarga Maryada Akanksha is explained in the general human compositions. But when it comes to the non-human Vedic compositions, so how can we say that there should also be word, meaning, and syntactic relation? This is the question. But the problem is, if we don't accept it, then the Vedic words become meaningless, but they do convey some meaning. When there is a meaning, the word should be connected with the meaning. So this is the general understanding that they approach the Shabda Pramana. And thus, The next few sutras in the very first pada of Jaimini Mimamsa say that it is on the basis of Shabda that we ascertain the, uh, the dharma. So dharma can be understood only through Shabda Pramana. So this is the basic standpoint of the Mimamsaka. And in this context, when I was studying the Mimamsa Sutra with Bhashya and Vartika, though my understanding is not that very deep, but I tell you that I was really fascinated by the depth of thought in their linguistic approach. Thus, we have the Akritya Adhikarana. Thus, we have in the third Adhyaya, the Vyakarana Adhikarana. So, where the ancient Mimamsaka thinkers had dwelt upon the nature of Varna, then Pada, then Vakya, then Padartha, then Vakyartha. Vakyartha is Shabdabodha. So Varna, Pada, Vakya, Vakyartha, and Vakyartha contributors. That means what really contribute to the sentential cognition, sentence meaning. So these are very important. And you find very typically the Mimamsakas had argued within themselves, and there came into existence few schools like the Bhatta school of Kumarila Bhatta, and the Prabhakara Mata was separate. So we have two different schools, and some other Mimamsaka, later Mimamsakas preferred to follow either of these, and thus the two schools had grown rich. So this is the background that Jaimini Maharshi had composed the Mimamsa Sutra, and he has hinted towards some linguistic basics, linguistic major principles, and then the Shabara Bhashya, the Kumarila Bhatta Vartika, especially the Shloka Vartika, then Prabhakara Bhatta Bruhati. So all these have contributed very significantly to the development of these linguistic studies. So when Murali Madhavan sir had asked me to think on this topic and give few thoughts to the hearers, the audience, I thought that it is very pertinent that we should speak, we should revisit our ancient texts, and we should explore those texts in order to make them very useful in the modern context. Otherwise, I'm afraid that our Shastra, our great contribution of our ancestors would fall into oblivion, would face a natural death. That is the problem, and therefore I readily accepted the invitation, and now I'll be discussing some of these important topics with you. Friends, I told you that it started with the Varna. So Mimamsa theories and linguistic studies, this is the topic. And here, when we analyze any language, we find that the language has a form, content, and use. Basically, these are the three things that a language is concerned with. One is the structure, that is the form. Second is the content. Third is the usage. So when the three are taken, the modern linguistics deal with some of these, like the syntax, morphological study, phonological study. They actually, these three deal with the form, and the semantics is the study of content, and pragmatics is the study of use of language. Now, Mimamsa has significantly focused on all these aspects of language. Very typically, you find the ancient Mimamsakas had in at great length, they have discussed all these, like syntactic, then morphological aspect, phonological one, semantics, and pragmatics. So I told you in the Vyakarana Adhikarana, for example, in the third Adhyaya of Mimamsa, we find whether all the purposes of Vyakarana that Mahabhashyakara Patanjali had shown in his Paspashanika are relevant or not. So a prima facie view appears in the Vyakaranadhikarana that these are not at all useful, because without them also, doing away with all these purposes also, the the purpose of bhasha, language, can continue. So when the purpose can be served without the vyakarana, then vyakarana can be ignored. So that is the prima facie oppositional view. And in the Shabra Bhashya and the Kumarila Bhatta Vartika also, they have dealt with this topic, saying that all the purposes shown by Patanjali are not baseless. We have to understand them in proper context. Thus, Kumarila Bhatta had referred to ancient grammarians, then he had substantiated the theory of Mìmëmsë. So basically, when we are studying Mìmëmsë, one aspect is that the Mìmëmsë Shastra should deal with the interpretation of Vedic sentences, basically the Brahmana sentences. So when they have taken the Taittiriya Brahmana or Shatapatha Brahmana, so when they are discussing these Brahmana Vakyas, basically it is ritualistic. But we should bear in mind that Mìmëmsë is not just a text on rituals, though it is a text on rituals, not just rituals. It has several other things to offer. And I would like to bring to your notice, especially the young researchers, young enthusiasts, that if you yourself study the Mìmëmsë Shastra under an able teacher, you will find that a new avenue is open to a great world of linguistics, a great world of theology, a great world of sentence interpretation, and it will take you into the marvels of interpretation. Really, we should appreciate that. But for that, we require to study the text. That means ancient basic texts like the Sutra, Bhashya, Shlokavartika, Tantravartika, Tuptika, and other texts like Parthasarathi Mishra and other texts. So we have to study them, not just Arthasangraha and Mìmëmsë Paribhasha, but other texts also. If we study, we find that they have got a lot to tell us about our own understanding of language. And we all know that basically language can be understood at different levels. That language at the usage level is sentence. That's why the Vyakarana also says that it is Akhanda Vakya Jati Spota. Though not all Mimamsakas agree with that spota. Mandana Mishra, in support of spota, he says, but Kumarila Bhatta does not speak about it. He doesn't accept it. So spota is a very interesting topic, that the spota vada in the Bhartrhari text in the Bhushan Sara last chapter also, we find that our ancient grammarians also, they dwelt upon that. They wanted to explain the spota theory. And on the other side, very typically, Shankaracharya also referred to this in his Brahma Sutra Bhashya, that is Shabdadeva Pramitaha Taduparya Vivadarayana Sambhavat. So here in the Pramitadhikarana and Devatadhikarana, you find that he refers to the spota, but he, in very clear terms, refutes the spota theory. He says it is unnecessary, and when the purpose can be served without spota, we need not accept it. That is his understanding, and he is very firm, that is Advaita. Similarly, the other thinkers also have explained the spota theory. So Vakya is the uppermost one. Because of that, communication is made. But when you analyze the Vakya, all the sentences are composed of words, because we all know that words constitute sentences. So therefore we come to the words. Then when we analyze the word, we find that there are the varna, and much has been discussed. Like we find that R.C. Dwivedi, then Purushottama Bilimoria, so they have also worked on the concept of varna. See, because people generally translate that as letter, some people prefer to translate that as sound, some people say it is morpheme. So naturally, morpheme, letter, then sound, when all these are available, which is closer to that etc. That's a big discussion, and Billy Moria has very clearly discussed all these points, that Varna should be the sound, and he has pointed out how many of the other scholars have made the blunder by translating the word Varna very wrongly. But we all know that after all, words are strings of phonemes, but arranged in specific sequence. Thus, we have rasa giving one meaning, rasa. Rasa means it can be sentiment, it can be the flavor of any dish, rasa. But when you rearrange that in a specific order, like Sara, Saraha, it means a lake, Sarovaraha, Saraha. So thus we find that the varna arranged in a word in a particular order give a particular sense. So these words again form the sentences. And keeping this in view, the Mimamsakas have framed the theory that the universal is the word meaning. This is the basic theory. Universal means here jati. Jati is of course akriti, according to the Mimamsaka, not according to the Nayayika. So the universal, that means jati, is the word meaning. That means padarthaha jatireva. Then a natural and permanent word sense relation is present as pratyaya, pratyayaka, pratyaya, pratyayaka. So this is the relation between word and sense. Outpattikastu shabdartha sambandha. Then how we get the sense from the words? When the words are supported by akanksha yogyata sanidhi, then a sentence meaning is obtained. Then communication in the Vyakaranathikara, very clearly Bhashyakara has stated that it Tattva Avabodha Shabdanam Nasti Vyakarana is the Bhartruhari concept, Vyakarana. But it is stated there that without that also, Vruddha Vyavahara is enough for that. And through Vruddha Vyavahara, that means through the way the elders use the words, we can get the knowledge of communication. So communication need not have the base of grammar. That is his understanding. But later he has refuted the idea, saying that Vyakarana is essential not for communication. He says for the sadhu asadhu shabda viveka. So sadhu asadhu shabda viveka can be obtained from the grammar. That's what our Bhushanasara text says, that it is sadhutva vishaya smritihi. Ime shabdaha atra sadhavaha, ime shabdaha asminnarthe asadhavaha. So this kind of ascertainment you can obtain from the grammar. Therefore, grammar, what does it do? It is dharma niyamah kriyate. Dharmaya niyamah kriyate. So after all, the role of Vyakarana in communication is to ascertain what is dharma, adharma, especially when it comes to communication. Then bhavana, this is bhatta. Bhavana pradhanaka shabdabodha. Bhavana mukhya visheshaka shabdabodha or bhavana pradhana shabdabodha. But slightly differing from bhatta, Prabhakara say that it is karya vishayaka, or you can say karya mukhya visheshaka shabdabodha. And very popularly, when it comes to the sentence cognition, sentential cognition, the bhatta have their understanding as abhitanvayavada, and the Prabhakara have the anvitabhidhana. And we know now that the Nayayika also are in favor of the abhitanvayavada, though Jayanta Bhatta in his Nyayamanjari presents another view. Most popularly it is believed that Nayayika follow the abhitanvayavada, and anvitabhidhanavada, the Mimamsakas and some of the Vedantins also follow the anvitabhidhanavada. Now, getting into the details, what is Varna? What is Varna Sthiti? Now, Varna, we all know, that is the foundational part of the word. As you can say, atoms are the building blocks of the universe. Similarly, you can say that Varna is the building block of the word. And very typically in the Yoga Bhashya, Vyasa Maharshi says that Vak Varneshu Arthavati. He says Vak Varneshu Arthavati. That means, after all, the speech is meaningful coming to the Varna, the phoneme level, and it is permanent. The Varna is permanent. Though Bhartrahari does not accept it, in the Vakyapadiya we know, Padena Varna Vidyante, Varneshu Avayava Nacha. So when he says, he is very clear that it is all for the sake of the grammar that we have classified all this, but ultimately there are neither words nor phonemes in that, only the Akhanda Vakya Jata, because it is essential for the communication. Sentence or word is a collection of sounds or spoken letters. With this collection, the word meaning is associated. Thus, one speaks, other person hears and understands. Therefore, no spota is required other than the or apart from the varna. So this is the basic, very interesting theory of Mimamsaka, that no spota is required. The varna are sufficient. Anvaya Vyatirikabhyam varna eva artha upagamaya paryapta. Phonemes leave memory traces. This Kumarila Bhatta says that how can you explain the phenomenon that the varna which disappear give you the sense? For that he says, see, when gauhu, the word is occurred, gakara, aukara, visarga, visarjaniya, then he says that each one is connected with the next. So thus, when the entire word is uttered, the first phoneme leaves an impression, second, third, thus everyone follows, and all these impressions, they get stored in the brain. So earlier ones together with the last phoneme convey the meaning. So this is the Varna Pratyayika Vada. This is Kumarila Bhatta, his standpoint on the Varna. But when it comes to Pada and Padartha, we know that how they do with this Shabda, Pada. What is Pada Artha? We say when Gauhu means a cow. But is it the individual cow, or only the figure, or the class of cowness? Which is it referring to? Because when I say Gam Anaya, one cow is brought. But when I say Gauhu na hantavyaha, it means no cow should be killed. What does it mean? That means wherever you find cowness, you should not kill it. The prohibition applies there. So therefore, sometimes it is jati, sometimes it is akriti, sometimes it is vyakti. That is the problem. So thus, the Gautama Maharshi Nyaya Sutra also tells us that jatya, kriti, vyaktayah padartha, all the three. Though the earlier Nayayikas say that jati, visishta, vyakti should be the padartha. But in the Mimamsa Shastra, jati is not different from akriti. Jati meva akritim prahu, vyaktir akaryate yaya. This is Shlokavartika, which says that jati is akriti. So don't differentiate. So when you are saying that jativada, it means akritivada only, then vyakti is separated. Now the problem is how that particular vyakti means here specific individual. So how you get the sense of vyakti from the jati? If word refers to jati, how can you get the sense of individual? They say for that the word has two significant word powers. One is abhidha, that is the direct word power. Second is lakshana, the implication. So when we have two powers, the abhidha refers to jati, and then the lakshana will function, then the jati visishta vyakti, that sense is obtained. Some people say it is akshepa, some people say it is lakshana. What is the difference? Akshepa means anumana pramana, some people say, or ardhapatti. In either case, there is not much difference according to Mimamsaka. But jati is the direct meaning of the word. This is very significant understanding. Thus, brahmanaha nahantavyaha. That means any Brahman, wherever you find the class. So thus, in Mimamsa context, especially in the context of rituals, when they use the word, it refers to the class, jati. And sometimes it has to refer to the individual. So thus, both are possible. Then Nayayika take the different standpoint. So, outpattikaha shabdartha sambandhaha The word and sense are thus naturally connected. But when it comes to the Bhatta, they say word first refers to jati, it is the direct meaning, and word has the abhidha shakti. Jater astitva nastitve nahi kaschid vivakshati nityatvat. This is Kumar Bhatta's Akriti Adhikarana Vartika. So it says jati is nitya. So we are not talking about eternity or non-eternity of jati. Vyaktehe tehi visheshane. Astitva nastitva, they pertain to the vyakti, not to the jati. So they differentiate between that. Then when jati is there, direct abhidha is sufficient. Then when vyakti, that sense is to be obtained, now you get to the lakshana. Thus he has clearly stated. And in between, Jayanta Bhatta talks about one Tatparya Shakti also, and Gangesh Upadhyaya also refers to that. Then the Prabhakara say that Abhidha Shakti is sufficient, but in the Jati it is Jnata Satta, Jnata Upayujyate. And in Vyakti it is Swarupa Satta, Kubja Shakti, they say. This is also very important addition of Prabhakara. Then we find a very important analysis of Vakya. What is sentence? Bhashya says Vishesha Vritti Vakyam. Then Sutra, the Jaimini Sutra itself says Arthaikatvad Ekam Vakyam, Sakangsham Chet. So a Vakya definitely presumes the syntactic expectancy between the words constituting that particular Vakya. So when there is a sentence, there are words, and those words in a sentence are syntactically related, then only they can be called as Vakya. Ekarthav padasamuho Vakyam. Samhatya arthamatram abhidadati padani Vakyam. This is also Bhashya, out of which the earlier Mimamsakas had derived the Abhitanvayavada. Evam ekartham anekam padam. Then Vakyartha, here the Parthasarathi Mishra, Shastra Deepika have different Anvita Vidhana, Abhitanvayavada. So we have the Vakya Bheda concept, Ekavakyata concept, how the sentences have a kind of break, that unconnectedness of the sentences, and the sentential uniformity, connectivity. All these are discussed in the Mimamsa Shastra. Sameshu Vakya Bheda Syad, he said. Pruthak bhavat vakyam bhedayati iti vakya bhedaha in the Bhashya. So it's not that the sentence is split because of so many senses. He says aneka vidhitaha vakya bhedaha bhavati. So that vidhi only makes the split of sentence. Arthaikatvad ekam vakyam sakangsham. So this is the thing. And in the sentential cognition, that vakyartha, we have two theories. Abhitanvayavada, Anvitabhidhanavada. I just tell you in brief, as the time does not permit. So, Padani Swartham Abhidadati. Then from Pada you get the Artha. Then there is the Samsarga. For example, Ghatam means you get the Ghatatva, that is the Swartha. Then Karmatva from the Vibhakti. And the sense of Ghatam will be Ghatatviya Karmata. That means the Karmata pertaining to Ghata, Ghatatva, Ghatatviya Karmata. Then how you get the Ghata sense? I told you from Akshepa or from Anumana. So Akanksha, Yogyata, Asati, these are explained in the Tarka Sangraha and other texts also. These are required to get the sentential meaning. Then there will be a unified meaning of a sentence. Then Tatparya. Tatparya is not just Vachyartha, it is beyond that. Then the Abhitanvayavada says that the meaning of a sentence is the sum total of the individual meanings conveyed by the constituent words. So this is the Abhitanvayavada of the Bhattas, and we have the Anvitabhidhanavada of the Prabhakaras also. And Prabhakara Bhatta very strongly supports the Anvitabhidhanavada because, see, it is Vakyam Vakyarthe Vyutpattimat. This is the Abhitanvayavada. This is the Anvitabhidhanavada. If Padasya Padarthe Anvayaha, it is Abhitanvayavada. This is the basic thing. And thus we have the Vakyasya Vakyarthe, Padasya Padarthe, Anvayaha. This Anvaya is the Samsarga. And very important. Anvita Vidhanavada had come into existence, which had found great support from other thinkers like Vedantins also. Words express a meaning, Abhidhana, as part of the sentence, and grammatically connected with one another. This Anvaya should be there. So then they only imply an action. This is Kriya Pradhana. Then connected word meanings constitute the sentence meaning. So lot is to be discussed here. Lot of thought is given to all these ideas. But I told you, I beg your pardon that because of dearth of time, we have to stop here. And I once again thank the organizers for giving me this great opportunity. And if time permits, I'll definitely come to you once again to discuss all these matters in detail. So, with these words, I conclude and I thank once again. Namaste.